For centuries, chocolate was more than just a food. It was a symbol of immense power and wealth, hoarded by empires and coveted by kings. But what if I told you the chocolate we know today is a shadow of its former self, lacking the rich depth and historical significance that once made it legendary? Discover the untold story. They say gold built empires. That it drove men to madness, to war, to greed, to glory. But what if I told you, there's another treasure, darker and sweeter, that has quietly outperformed gold, shaping nations, economies, and destinies? A treasure that conquered hearts long before it conquered markets. A treasure that turned kings into traders, and traders into kings. This is the story of chocolate, the luxury that became an empire. A commodity so powerful, it created fortunes larger than gold. And so addictive, it enslaved millions to feed the world's sweetest obsession, the sacred bean. Long before Wall Street or the London Stock Exchange, long before global markets priced cocoa futures, there was a bean so sacred, it was once used as currency. We travel back to Central America 3,000 years ago, to the world of the Olmecs, the Mayans, and the Aztecs. Here chocolate wasn't candy. It was divine. They called it zacatl, the bitter water of the gods. It wasn't eaten. It was drunk, mixed with Chilean spices, a dark elixir reserved for priests, warriors, and kings. Among the Aztecs, cocoa beans were worth more than gold. You could buy a turkey hen for 100 beans, a slave for a few thousand. And when Montezuma, the emperor of the Aztecs, entertained guests, he reportedly drank 50 cups of cocoa each day. Chocolate wasn't just a drink. It was status, the currency of power, faith, and empire. But then in 1519, a new player arrived. A conqueror chasing another treasure. Conquest and extraction. When Hernán Cortés and his Spanish soldiers landed in Mexico, they came searching for gold and glory. What they found was chocolate. At first they hated it. The bitter, spiced drink didn't taste like the sweetness they expected. But when they saw how the Aztecs revered it, used it as currency, taxed it, prayed to it, they realized they'd stumbled upon something far more valuable than they knew. By the time Cortés returned to Spain, he carried not only gold, but cocoa beans, seeds of a new empire. In Europe, sugar was added. The bitterness faded. And suddenly, a sacred ritual of the Aztecs became a luxury of European royalty. By the 1600s, Spanish and Portuguese colonizers were planting cocoa across their empires, in the Caribbean, in South America, in Africa. Cocoa plantations spread like wildfire. And with them came something darker. Because cocoa is a labor-intensive crop. It demands hands, thousands of them. Hands that worked long hours under tropical heat. So, like sugar and cotton, chocolate was built on slavery. Ships sailed from Africa, carrying human cargo. Those same ships returned to Europe, carrying cocoa. It was the triangular trade, gold, guns, slaves, and cocoa, an economy of extraction masked by sweetness. By the 1700s, cocoa wasn't just a luxury. It was a financial machine. And Europe, especially Britain and France, turned it into wealth unimaginable. The industrial chocolate empire. As Europe industrialized, the taste for chocolate spread from palaces to the streets. Enter the Quakers, families like Cadbury, Rowntree, and Fry in Britain. They were religious dissenters barred from many professions, so they turned to trade. Their goal? To make chocolate moral, a wholesome alternative to alcohol and vice. But in doing so, they built corporate dynasties. By the mid-1800s, chocolate factories were booming. The invention of the steam press allowed cocoa butter to be separated and solidified, paving the way for the chocolate bar. Then came the Swiss. Nestlé, Lindt, and Tobler transformed chocolate into art. They invented milk chocolate, smooth and creamy, mass-produced and wrapped in gold foil. The world was hooked. Chocolate became a symbol of comfort, love, and indulgence. The perfect disguise for the exploitation it still relied on. Because while Europe grew rich on chocolate, the farmers in Africa who grew the beans remained trapped in poverty. The new gold rush. By the 20th century, chocolate had become global. Companies like Hershey, Mars, and Nestlé turned it into an empire worth billions. Today, the global chocolate industry is valued at over $140 billion, nearly twice the annual value of gold mined worldwide. Yes, chocolate by sheer trade volume has outpaced gold. And yet, the hands that harvest it still live in poverty. Over 70% of the world's cocoa comes from just two countries, Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. Here, farmers earn less than $1 a day. Many cannot afford the very chocolate their beans create. Worse, the sweet empire still hides a bitter truth. Child labor and forced work remain rampant in West African cocoa farms. Investigations have revealed that children as young as 10 use machetes to cut pods, carry heavy sacks and spray toxic chemicals, all to meet the demand of the world's biggest brands. In 2001, the Harkin-Engel Protocol, an international agreement, promised to end child labor in cocoa production. Yet 2 decades later little has changed. Because the economics of cocoa are built on price suppression. Big chocolate corporations control the supply chain, dictating the prices they pay farmers, ensuring profits stay concentrated at the top. It's not so different from the empires of old. Only now the ships have been replaced by supply chains, and the colonies, by contracts. The invisible market. If chocolate is richer than gold, it's not just because of taste. It's because of financialization, how something simple becomes an instrument of speculation. On global markets, cocoa is traded like oil or silver. Futures contracts decide prices months ahead. Banks, hedge funds, and speculators gamble on harvests they'll never touch. In 2010, Anthony Ward, a British commodities trader nicknamed Chalkfinger, bought 240,000 tons of cocoa beans, about 7% of the world's supply. He stored them in warehouses waiting for prices to rise. For months, chocolate manufacturers panicked. Prices spiked, profits squeezed. Ward made millions. Consumers paid more. Farmers? They earn the same or less. Because the cocoa farmer is the only person in the chain who cannot raise his price. He doesn't control markets, contracts, or logistics. He only controls his hands. So while we debate whether gold is overvalued, cocoa has quietly become a commodity of control, a market where power, not fairness, dictates value. The corporate conspiracy. The modern chocolate industry is ruled by a handful of giants. Mars, Mondelez, Nestle, Ferrero, and Hershey. Together, they control more than 60% of the global market. Behind their marketing of joy, kindness, and love lies a brutal efficiency. They invest millions in branding, but only a few cents of every chocolate bar reach the farmer. To keep profits high, these corporations rely on a global network of intermediaries, traders like Barry Callebaut and Cargill, who buy cocoa in bulk, blend it, and sell it to manufacturers. The result? The system is opaque by design. Every attempt to make it transparent, to trace chocolate bean to bar, threatens profit margins. Certification schemes like fair trade exist, but they cover only a small fraction of total cocoa. Even ethical chocolate often flows through the same supply chains as the rest. The truth? The sweet treat that symbolizes comfort and romance is built on one of the world's most exploitative economic models. Breaking point, the modern paradox. By the 21st century, the paradox became impossible to ignore. Chocolate was everywhere, from supermarkets to satellites, yet the people who grew it remained invisible. In 2019, cocoa farmers in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana demanded higher prices, a living income differential of $400 per ton. The chocolate giants agreed, publicly. But behind the scenes they found ways around it, buying cheaper beans elsewhere, delaying contracts, or adjusting quality standards. When COVID-19 hit, the luxury chocolate market surged. People stuck at home consumed more comfort food than ever. Sales hit record highs. Meanwhile, in West Africa, cocoa prices collapsed, and thousands of farmers slid deeper into debt. A study by the World Cocoa Foundation found that the average cocoa farmer would need to triple his income just to live above the poverty line. Triple. The question isn't whether chocolate is richer than gold. It's who gets the gold. Modern parallels. Look around. The chocolate empire mirrors the modern economy itself. A luxury built on invisible labor. A market controlled by a few global corporations. And a public distracted by the sweetness of consumption. We've seen this before. During the colonial era, it was sugar and gold. Today it's cocoa, coffee, and data. Each time, humanity creates a new obsession, something that feels innocent but hides vast inequality beneath. Even in 2025 as we speak, the global cocoa shortage has sent prices soaring to record levels, over $10,000 per ton, the highest in decades. And who profits? Commodity traders, hedge funds, corporations. Not the hands that harvest the beans. It's the same pattern that has repeated for centuries. Resources extracted from the global south. Wealth accumulated in the global north. The plantation may have changed, but the power structure hasn't. The future of chocolate. Yet not all hope is lost. A quiet revolution is brewing, a bean-to-bar movement. Small chocolate makers are trying to cut out the middlemen, pay farmers directly, and restore dignity to the trade. In Ghana, cooperatives are forming, farmers pooling resources to process and export their own beans. In Latin America, companies are branding their chocolate with origin pride, made where it's grown. And consumers, increasingly aware of the hidden cost of sweetness, are demanding transparency. But these are small ripples in a massive ocean. Because as long as global finance values profit over people, chocolate will remain, like gold, a mirror of inequality. 3 lessons from the sweet empire. So what can we learn from chocolate, the empire richer than gold? Keycap 1: value is never sweet by accident. What the world desires most, whether gold, oil, or cocoa, is always built on someone else's labor. The taste of luxury often hides the cost of exploitation. Keycap 2: empires evolve, but don't disappear. The colonial ships became supply chains, the governors became CEOs, and the slaves became underpaid laborers. The system remains. Only the tools change. Keycap 3: awareness is power. Every purchase is a vote, for a system to continue or to change. We may not control global markets, but we can choose what stories we consume, and whose stories we ignore. The bitter aftertaste. The next time you unwrap a bar of chocolate, remember, you're holding history, currency, empire, and labor wrapped in foil. Chocolate may be richer than gold, but its true value is measured not in taste, but in truth. Because behind every bite lies a question the world still refuses to answer. How can something so sweet come from something so bitter? If this story opened your eyes, don't just like the video, share it. Let people know that even sweetness has a price. Subscribe to World Financial Mysteries for more stories about the hidden history of money, power, and empire. Because the next mystery may already be in your hands, wrapped in gold and sold as chocolate.